I thought it was important that we have a look at just sort of some slightly more sort of unusual questions. The other thing that I also wanted to discuss with you this evening, I don't know if you remember, but a while back I had asked you guys a question about standard deviation. Do you remember that? And whether the standard deviation would be affected by something. Do you remember this? So it was, where was it? It was this question over here. I don't know if you remember this. And we said that we would come back and we would discuss this. And I asked about it and nobody sort of said anything. And I just wanted to finish off our course by discussing this. Do you remember this question? It was in our first lesson on this topic. And we'd spoken about the median, the interquartile range. We'd spoken about the skewness of the data. And then we looked at question 1.1.4 and we said that in one of the houses, there was a burst water pipe. That resulted in this particular household consuming an excess of 8.9 kiloliters of water. And then I asked what the effect on the standard deviation would be. Do you remember this? And a few of you had...
people who were confused, maybe they're still joining in. Lesego said yes.
Lesego, you say yes. Did anybody actually go and talk to someone about this question or think about it a little bit? Because I know a few of us said that it would make the standard deviation increase. And then I said, okay, well, we need to go away and think about this. Did anybody go away and think about it? I take it that's a no.
I'm on the checks, honestly, it's the best policy. You just say yes or no.
I think it's a resounding no, since no one's saying anything. Okay, so if we understand what standard deviation is, then the only answer that we can have to this question is no. The standard deviation is not going to be affected by this burst water pipe. Okay, so now the question becomes, what does standard deviation mean? What does the standard deviation represent about data? What is it telling us about the data? Okay. So that
say the answer.
So that's the problem. Maybe we don't know the answer. Okay, so we know how to calculate it when we're asked. Okay, specifically, Hendrina, how the data is spread, yes, but how the data is spread around the mean. Okay, so thank you for your answer, Hendrina. The standard deviation tells us how the data is spread around the mean. If we have a low standard deviation, then all our data points are quite close to the mean. If we have a high standard deviation, our points are spread further away from the mean. Okay, so if a water pipe bursts and the household consumes in excess of 8.9 kiloliters, it will have an effect on the mean. The mean will increase. Okay, but the standard deviation will not change. Okay, because each data point will move the same distance from the mean. The mean they're still going to be the same distance from the mean. Okay, so your mean will increase, but your standard deviation will stay the same. Okay, because it's still going to be the same distance from whatever that mean is. Okay, so your mean will get bigger, but your standard deviation will stay the same. All right, so if they ask you a question about that, that's what you need to say. Okay, so the standard deviation will not be affected in this situation. Okay, it's only the mean that's going to be affected, not your standard deviation. Okay. All right, so let's go back and have a look at the information that we are going to be looking, well, the questions we are going to be answering this evening. This first question, let me just move that out the way. I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger so that you guys can see it a little bit more clearly. I want to do this with you because I haven't revised, or I think I did it very briefly where I revised the concept of the estimated mean with you, but I wanted you to see how they managed to bring this into a question that the matrix had to answer the 1 year. So it says to us, a survey was conducted among 100 people about the amount that they paid on a monthly basis for their cell phone contracts. The person carrying out the data calculated the estimated mean to be 309 Rand per month. Unfortunately, he lost some of the data thereafter. The partial results of the survey are shown in the table below. So they tell us that the amount paid in rands between 0 and 100 Rand, there were 7 people. Between 100 and 200 Rand, 12 people. Between 200 and 300, they don't know, they've got A. 300 to 435 people, 400 to 500, B number of people. And between 500 and 600 Rand a month, there were 6 people. So the first question they ask is how many people paid 200 Rand or less on their monthly cell phone contract? So based on the data that we've been given, how many people paid 200 Rand or less for their contract? $19, good. Okay, see how it's 19? Okay, where does the 19 come from? That's it. It's these two together. Okay, so 200 Rand or less means this row and the row below it. Okay, good. All right, so that would be 19 people. 100%, 1 mark there. Now let's look at the next question. The next question says, use the information above to show that A is 24 and B is 16. So we've got to use the information above to show that A is 24 and B is 16. What do you think? How would we do this? What do you think, Matrix? You're welcome to unmute and speak. Okay, so Katleho, must we use the estimated mean? Yes, that's going to be part of it. Correct, Katleho. What else are we going to use? So I'll give you guys a couple of minutes to think about it. And then it would be awesome if somebody was willing to unmute and share their ideas. Okay, so cumulative frequency doesn't come into this. So Voloshin, you said use frequency. How? What could I do with frequency? How could I use it together with the information that I've been given? What do you think?
Ma'am?
I'm Mulebo.
What if we solve for simultaneous?
Oh, well done. Very nice. Good. I'm so glad that you said that. Thank you, Mulebo. You're quite right. We're solving for 2 different variables. Yes. So if we're solving for 2 different variables, we've got to do it simultaneously. So Mulebo, if we're solving simultaneously, it means we need 2 equations. So how are we going to make 2 equations on the information, based on the information that's been given to us? So Voloshin, you said frequency. How could we make an equation with frequency?
Ma'am, we can add 17
Mm-hmm.
plus, no, 7 plus
Mm-hmm.
12 plus
Mm-hmm.
35 plus 6, and then we say plus A plus B, and it is equals to 100, and then we make A the subject of the formula, and then we make the other formula making B the subject of the formula.
Okay, well done. So Molebo, you're on fire this evening. That's beautiful. So Molebo has made one equation for you guys. All right, that's really nice. Well done. Now, the second equation is a little bit more complicated. All right. Do you remember I showed you, I think it was, I can't remember which lesson it was, but I think it was definitely last week. I showed you guys how to do the estimated mean. And we discussed how you would have to work out what the midpoint of a particular group was. So if we work out the midpoint of the amount paid in rands, the midpoint of this group would be 50. The midpoint of this group would be 150. Here it would be 250. Here it would be 350. Here it would be 450. And here it would be 550. So you're basically adding your lower bound and your upper bound together and dividing by 2. And then we discussed how you would have to take your midpoint and you would have to multiply it by your frequency. So here in this column, you would say 50 times 7. So this would be 350. Do you remember this? Do you remember us talking about this the other night? Matrix, do you remember us talking about this? Amahle? You're welcome to unmute and speak, Amahle.
Okay, Susanna said yes.
Okay, there's a few people.
Yes.
A few people saying yes here, so
Yeah.
that's good. Okay, so I'm just going down here, multiplying the midpoint by the frequency. Okay, Amahle, you sure? And then 450 times B is 450B, and 6 times 550 is 3,300. Okay, and then do you recall we added all of those values up, divided by how many values we had, and that gave us the estimated mean. So now what I need to do is I need to add all of these numbers together, the 350, the 1800, 250A, the 12,250. Tell you what, let's just move this over. Okay, there we just made a little bit of space for ourselves. Where were we? We were adding all these things together. The 450 and then the 3,300. We had to add them all together. And now I'm going to divide it by what, Matrix? I'm going to go back and show you the question again. What am I dividing that by? That's it. Okay, because there were 100 people. Excellent. Okay, so there were 100 people. That's why we are dividing it by 100. And what's it going to be equal to? Again, I'm going to scooch over to the side over here, let you look at the information. What's it going to be equal to, Matrix? That's it, Shisana. Okay, the estimated mean. So see here, Matrix, you've got to read the information so carefully. Okay, so they've calculated the estimated mean. Hint, 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 hint. Okay, so this is going to be equal to 309. So our 309 is going to go over there. Okay, and now we're just going to have to rearrange, well, not rearrange, but simplify our equation a little bit. So I'm going to cross multiply the 100 with the 309. And I'm also going to add together the like terms that I've got in the numerator on the left-hand side. So I can add together 350 and 1,800 and 12,250 and 3,300. I can add all those numbers together. That gives me 17,700 plus 250A plus 450B is equal to 309 with 2 zeros on the end. Okay. And now I want to get my A and my B by themselves, my A and B terms on their own, and I'm going to take the 17,700 over to the other side. And that's going to leave me with 13,200. Okay, so if I wanted to here, I could simplify a little bit more. I don't have to. I could if I wanted to, but if I don't, that's also fine. And this essentially is equation number 2. So now I've got my 2 equations and I can solve simultaneously. Any questions? Any questions before I move on? Oh, good, Ortile. All right, so it's all clear. Okay, so let's make, like Mulebo said, we're going to make either A or B the subject of the formula. Choice is yours. If we make A the subject to the formula, that would give us 100 minus B, and then we would have to go and sub in. So we've got 250 times 100 minus B plus 450B is 13,200. Okay, so this is going to give us 250 with 2 zeros on the end minus 250B plus 450B is this. And then on the left-hand side, we would have 200B. On the right-hand side, we've got oh, that can't be right. What have I done? Okay, Nolutanda, I'm going to answer your question now. Just give me 1 second. Oh, hang on. I know why my calculator's not happy. Sorry, I'm sitting in the dark here because of load shedding, and my calculator's still on statistics mode. So no wonder it's having a small heart attack here while I'm busy pressing all sorts of buttons.
Yeah, I'm now also just sitting in the dark.
Hang on a second. Are you also sitting in the dark?
Yeah.
It's so irritating, isn't it?
Yeah. But Uradile has cleared that out for us. Uradile says it's 66.
I've done something strange here. I don't know what I've done wrong. Oh, now I understand where I'm being stupid. Hang on a second. This is not 100. That's why. Hang on a second, guys. Hang on. I'm being now I think I understand what Nolutanda was asking me. Sorry, Nolutanda, it's been a long day. Okay. In order to get the number on the right-hand side here, I would have to say 100 minus 6 minus 35 minus 12 minus 7. Okay, so sorry, Nolutando, thank you so much. So A was equal to B, so 40 minus B. Okay, so this should be 40 minus B over here. That's better. Okay, so now we've got 250 times 40 That's better. All right, so this would give us 200B on this side, and now we've got 3,200. We should get 16. There we go. Okay, perfect. So now we've got the right answer. All right, Sihle, no problem. Okay, so Voloshin, you can't get 136,955 because they told us that B was equal to 16. Okay, remember over here in question 2.2, it says, show that B is 16 and that A was 24. Okay. Right, so an interesting question. It's okay, Voloshin, don't worry. Look at the mistake I just made. I didn't even take all those numbers over to the other side and I still had the 100 there. Okay, so never mind, we all make mistakes. So interesting question, isn't it? Because here they've managed to, in paper 2, ask you a simultaneous solution and do that in statistics. Okay, so now we've got B is 16. We can work out what A is by going and working with this formula over here. And A would be equal to 40 minus 16, which is 24. All right, so they've given us the answers. So our marks in this case would be for making that equation, I think for making that one and simplifying, and then going and subbing in like so. Okay. Are there any questions or can we carry on with the next thing? Is everybody all right? Yeah. It is indeed wow, Katleho. I also thought so when I saw this question the first time. Crazy, hey? Okay. So Oratile, you're going to have to explain to me what it is that you want me to go over. Just think about that. I'm just going to finish off the rest of the question. We can always come back to what you want me to clarify. Okay. The next question asks us to write down the modal class of the data. How do I know which one is the modal class? How do I know which one is the modal class? The modal class is the one with the what? Highest frequency. That's it. Quite right. Okay, so that would be this class over here. Their frequency is 35. So that will be the group of people that paid between 300 and 400 Rand a month for their cell phones. Okay, there we go. Where did I get the 309? It was given Lesedi over here. Okay, they told you here that that was the estimated mean. That's it, Katleho. Well done. All right, now they want us to draw an ogive, a cumulative frequency graph to represent the data. Oh, okay, now, but the problem is Sihawu, okay, sorry, I just need to answer this question that Sihawu is just, so Sihawu, that's the wrong thing, because what you should have done with the 7 and the 12 and the A and the 35, that was your frequency. So you needed to add all of those up and make it equal to 100 because there were 100 people in the survey. When you were doing your estimated mean, you have to find the midpoint of your class intervals and then multiply it by your frequency. And then that's what you add up and put over 100. Okay, so it's not the frequency that gets added up and put over 100. You first have to multiply your frequency by your midpoint. So that's what you forgot to do. See how? All right. Okay. Sorry, there's still some questions coming through on question 2.2. All right, so let's go and have a look. Yes, now why I said A plus B is 40, that's it, Oratile, because I added up the frequency column and made it equal to 100. There you go. Okay, so remember I had to make two equations. So I can make one equation based on the frequency and the other equation based on the estimated mean. Okay, and then solve those two simultaneously like I did with the purple and the orange. Okay. All right, so here's our ogive. They will obviously give you a graph to draw on. You won't have to construct this yourselves. What I'm going to do is just make this a little bit bigger. Not too big. Okay, so in order to draw our ogive, we have to have cumulative frequency. So we don't have cumulative frequency. That's something that we need to go and calculate. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add in an extra row over here, and we can work out what the cumulative frequency is. So the cumulative frequency of the first row is 7. The next row would be 19. Remember, A was equal to 24, so that would be 19 plus 24. So this row here would be 43. Then add 35. This row would be equal to 78. Then B was equal to 16, so we'd add 16, and we'd get 94. And then we'd add 6, and we'd end up with 100. Okay, so remember with our cumulative frequency, it has to come to the same as our frequency in the end. Okay, how do I know what my x-intercept is going to be? How do I know what my x-intercept is, Matrix? So we spoke about this in previous lessons. How do I find my x-intercept? What is it? Come, Matrix. How do I find my x-intercept? What am I looking at? There we go. So in Bali, it's not the midpoint. All right. In Kanyiso, you're quite right. Okay, so we look at our interval. That's it. Well done. So our very first interval that they give us, we're going to look at the lower bound of our first class interval. That's our x-intercept. Okay, so this graph has an x-intercept at 0 and 0. How do I plot cumulative frequency? Now, what am I plotting against what? What do I use to draw the graph? What numbers? So what numbers do I use to plot the frequency? The cumulative frequency graph. Trish, against what? Oh, there we go. Masindi said 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600. Yes, against what? That's it. Okay, so Sihle, you're on the right track there. Cumulative frequency against the amount paid in rands, but now you are using the upper bound. So that's your X, that's your Y. That's your X, that's your Y. Okay, so it's your upper bound against your cumulative frequency. Okay, so let's go over. The first point that we're going to plot is the x-intercept at 0 and 0. So that would be there. And then the next point we're going to plot is going to be the 100 against the 7. So now we're going to do that. 100 against 7. 7 would be there because we're going up in 2s on the y-axis. Then we're going to plot 200 against 19. 200 against 19. So 19 is going to be up here against the 200. And then going back, and I'm going to plot 300 against 43. 300 against 43. So that would be about there. 400 against 78. Now it really jumps up, so 78 is there. 400 against 78. 500 against, let's just scooch over a little bit, 500 against 94. 500 against 94. And the last one was 600 against 100. Okay, so there is our ogive. Okay, and it needs to be a smooth curve. Okay, like you would draw a parabola or any function, it needs to be a smooth curve. All right, make sure that when you draw it, that your line goes through all the points. Okay, so we're going to come over and there and there. Sorry, it's a little bit more difficult for me on my drawing pad. And then I'm going to come, whoopsie, oh, that was horrible. So now there, I was completely out. Let me try and do this a little bit better. Whoopsie. Okay, there we go. All right, so there is my ogive. If I scooch back over again, you can see here my ogive was out of 4 marks. Okay, 4 marks for my ogive. So there's going to be an accuracy on my x-intercept. Okay, the other thing that I'm going to get a mark on is that I have drawn a nice smooth curve. Okay, and then often what they do with things like this is they will give you 1 mark. Let's say if you got 1 point correct, and another mark if you had all your points correct. Okay, it is Velocian, but it has to be a curve. Okay, you cannot draw it with a ruler. Okay, so it is a curve. It is not something that is drawn with straight lines connecting the dots. Yes, Kamagelo.
Hi, ma'am.
Hi, Kamagelo.
How are you?
I'm fine, and you?
I'm all right. Could we please go back to the question?
Sure. There we go.
You see, like the table, please. You see on the table we have the amount paid in rents.
Yes.
So I once saw a case whereby the numbers on the left-hand side were not there.
Wait, these numbers over here, the 0, the 100, the 200 were not there.
Yes.
Wow. Really?
Yes.
Okay.
And my question is in relation to the x-intercept.
What would you do?
Yes.
I have never seen a question like that before, because when you are drawing an ogive, you are working with grouped data. You are not working with ungrouped data. So I actually don't know what you would do in a situation like that. I'd like to see the question. If I could see the question, I could maybe answer you a little bit better. But yeah, I don't know that you could draw an ogive if you didn't have group data, because it all hinges off you having those class intervals that have lower and upper bounds.
All right, ma'am. I'll try to.
If you can find the question and email it to me, then at least I can have a look and I can bring it up.
All right.
Okay.
All
All
right.
right. So do that. Okay, Kamagelo, thank you. And then the last question here asks us to determine how many people paid more than 420 Rand per month for their cell phone contracts. So remember what this data represents. Okay, so if we have a look at this group over here, we can say that 19 people paid 20 Rand or less. 43 people paid 300 Rand or less. 78 people paid 400 Rand or less. Okay, 94 people paid 500 Rand or less. So if they want us to work out how many people paid more than 420 Rand, sorry, excuse me, for their cell phone contract, the first thing that we need to do in terms of answering our question is to draw a vertical line where the 420 is. So this is going up in units of 10. So 420 is going to be over here. Okay, so I'm just going to go up. Okay, can you see my green line? Okay, now I need to go over to the x-axis. Okay, so now I'm going to go over. Oopsie, I haven't done that perfectly. All right, what I'm going to do is just move that line up a little bit. There we go. Have I got it in the right place? Maybe a little bit further up. Okay, there we go. Okay, so if we now go and have a look at what this value over here would be, it's somewhere between 82 and 84. So we could say 83, we could say 82, we could say 84. I think that there would be, not I think, I know that there would be a little bit of leeway with that. Okay, so we're going to say 82 people. So that means that 82 people paid 420 Rand or less. But the question is asking us how many people paid more than 420 Rand per month. So how would we work this out based on the information we've got? We know that about 82 people paid 420 Rand or less. How are we going to work out how many people paid 420 Rand or more? What do you think? There we go, Nolatundo. Good. Lichlu, Lesedi, yes, lovely. Okay, so questions like this, we must show where we have read off, right? Just as I've done in the green. And quite right, we would say 100 people in total minus those 82 means that there would be about 18 people, okay, who paid more than 420 Rand per month. Okay, good job, everybody. Well done. Okay, so we're going to go and have a look at the next question now. Before we move on, is there anything that you want to ask about question 2 before we continue? Any last questions on question 2? Okie dokes. All right, so let's move on then. Okay, so here we have okay, so Mbalentli, you're asking about the one with A and B, please. Okay, let's go back then. What about the A and the B do you want to ask, Mbalentli? What do you want to ask about here? Mbalentli, what do you want to ask me about the A and the B? So you understand the part of the simultaneous equation, cool. What is it that you don't understand? Oh, you don't understand the 250A. Okay. All right. So what I was doing here is I'm multiplying. So to get this 350 over here, I've multiplied frequency by midpoint. So I'm multiplying these numbers together. So I'm saying this times this, this times this, this times this. So A times 250 is where I get the 250A. Because remember, at this point, I don't know what A is equal to. Okay. And then to get the 350 here, I'm saying, oh, sorry, to get the 12,250 here, I'm saying 35 times 350. 450B, B times 450. 3,300 came from 6 times 550. Okay, so I multiplied my frequency with my midpoint. Okay, Mbalentli. Hopefully that makes a bit more sense now. Okay, no problem. All right, so let's go down and go and have a look at this question. Amahle, I think because they expect you to think and understand, they expect you to know how to calculate estimated mean. So they would expect you to know that method. And then based on the frequency, I think they would have just expected you to know that you would have to add your frequency column up. Okay, but that's why it's a really nice question to look at, right? Because it's not, you know, the way to the answer is not particularly obvious. So I'm just answering a question in the chat here. Okay, so let's look at this. The matric class of a certain high school had to vote for the chairperson of the RCL. The scatter plot below shows the intelligence quotient, the person's IQ, of the top 10 learners who received the most votes, and the number of votes that they received. So we get what we would expect here. All right, so IQ against number of votes. We don't necessarily need to have a particularly high IQ to be a popular person, and just because somebody has a lower IQ doesn't mean that they're going to be unpopular. So you can see that the scatter plot, there really isn't much of a pattern there at all. So before the election, what they did, the popularity of each of those 10 learners was established, and a popularity score was assigned to each. The popularity scores and the number of votes of the same 10 learners who received the most votes are shown in the table below. Okay, I'm just having a look in the, okay, so Mbalentli, that's a good question. All right, and Voloshan's also saying same thing. What is the difference between the estimated mean and the mean? So you can only calculate an estimated mean from grouped data. That's why it's an estimate, because you don't know what the actual mean is, because you have to work with the midpoint or the average of each class. When you are calculating a genuine mean, so if we go back and have a look here, All right. When they asked us to calculate the mean number of runs that were scored by this cricketer, we can work out what the mean is because we can add all of those numbers together and divide by how many numbers there are. That's an actual mean. Okay, so here, this data is ungrouped. Okay, but once the data is grouped, then it is a estimated mean, like we're doing this evening. Okay, so that's the difference between a mean and an estimated mean. Okay, Voloshin and Mbalendle, I hope that makes a little bit more sense now. Okay, good. All right, so again, here they are asking you to calculate the mean number of votes. Let's see if we can put this up here. The mean number of votes. Get rid of that. Each of these 10 learners received. So they want the mean number. Actually, I don't know that putting it up there was the best thing. Let's maybe put it down here. Okay, I think that's better. Okay, so this data is not grouped. So when we calculate the mean number of votes that these 10 learners received, it's not group data. We're not doing an estimated mean. It's just a normal mean. Okay, so 1.1.1 and 1.1.2, you guys can do by yourselves. Just be careful, read it properly. It's the mean number of votes. Okay, so just be careful about which row you choose. Let's do that quickly, and then you can share your answers with us. That's it, Lehlu. There we go. Good. Well done, everybody. Okay, so that was very, very quick and easy, wasn't it? So this is just a normal mean, the mean number of votes received. So that would be like that. That would be 15,5. Standard deviation in this case was 4,59. Okay, good job. So 2 marks on the mean, 1 mark on the standard deviation. Yes, you must use a calculator for this. All right, so the learners who received fewer votes than 1 standard deviation below the mean were not invited for an interview. How many learners were invited? Okay, so you're going to answer that question, please. How many learners were invited for an interview? Anybody that was less than 1 standard deviation from the mean was not invited. How many learners were invited? That's it in Belentle. Okay, so Kamogelo, your answer is how many learners were not invited? How many learners were invited? That's it, Lesedi. There we go, Kamogelo. Good. Okay, so Lesedi, if 2 were not invited, how many were invited? The question wants to know how many were invited. Yes, Lieflu. Good. Yes, so good. Yes, Lesedi, lovely. Okay, good. So you guys, for this question, for 2 marks, you went 15,5 minus 4,59. That gave you 10, something. 10,91. Okay, so anybody good, anybody that got less than 10.91 votes was not invited. So that meant that this person was not invited and that person was not invited. 2 people were not invited. And that's why we would have had 8 learners that were invited. Okay, well done. All right, now they ask us to determine the equation of the least squares regression line. Okay, so let's see you do that. Let's see what you get, the equation of the least squares regression line. Let me just do this so that you guys can see clearly. Okay, Kamchelo, you've got the answer already. Nice. Let's see what everybody else says. Okay, and Tlafatso, thank you for your answer. Let's see what the others are saying. Okay, Lichlu, good, well done. You've also got the right answer. Okay, Mbalenhle, you got a different answer to everybody else. Tegofatso, you got a different answer to everybody else. Don't know what happened there. Okay, so let's just have a look. Okay, so you should be getting, this is what a lot of people had sent me. This is what you should be getting. Okay, you should be getting A is 1,7709. You should be getting B is 0,2243. Okay, so the equation of your least squares regression line, you should be getting y equals 1,77 plus 0,22x. Okay, there we go. Simply where you type one value in your calculator. Okay, that's why. All right, good, Lesedi, well done. Let's just finish this off very quickly. So for question 1.4, they are asking us to predict the number of votes that a learner with a popularity score of 72 would receive. So the number of votes is Y, so we would say 1,77, and then 0,22, and then
into 72.
pop in that. Oh, hang on a second, I'm in my computing mode. So we'd say 1.77 plus 0.22 into 72. So here, 17,61. So I guess that would be round about 18 votes. That's it. That's it, Ntlafatso. Good, well done. And then it says, using the scatter plot and the table above, provide a reason why. So let's get that out the way. IQ is not a good indicator of the number of votes that a learner could receive. Why is IQ not a good indicator? Why is IQ not a good indicator? Is there any trend in this data? Is there any pattern here in the scatter plot? Okay, yeah, absolutely. In fact, I'd say there is no correlation at all. Okay, so we don't have R tsegofatso. So what they want us to do here is they don't actually want us to calculate the R, even though I suppose we could based on the information we've been given. This scatter plot has got dots all over. All right, so we can't see that there is like a definite trend here. So if we went and we had a look at the scatter plots that we were dealing with the last time, okay, so here we could see that even though the correlation wasn't strong, we could see that there was a downward trend. Over here, we could see that there was a correlation, there was an upward trend. Whereas if we have a look at this one, those dots are all over the place. Okay, so there's clearly no correlation or relationship between number of votes and IQ. Okay, so there's no, the scatter plot is all over, there's no correlation. So no correlation. Right. The prediction in question 1.4 is reliable. So in 1.4, did anybody work out what the R value was at the same time as they were doing this question in 1.3? Anybody work out what R was? What was R equal to? Anyone still got that information? There we go, Sihawu, thank you. 0,983, yes. Okay, so that's almost perfect, isn't it? Okay, so because our correlation coefficient is 0,98, it's an almost perfect positive correlation. So it's very reliable. Okay, so the correlation coefficient is almost equal to 1. Therefore, the data is very reliable because of this correlation coefficient. Okay.